Hello, my friends. My name is Adam, and I'm on a quest to be the most prolific reviewer of all time. To do so, I review books, movies, plays, podcasts, television shows. And today I'm going to talk about one of those classics that a lot of people like, which is the miniseries from HBO called Rome from 2006 to 2007. And I know this is going to make me sound like an old man to some of you, but I do remember when that came out, and I was like, yeah, I want to watch that, but I never actually made much effort to get around to watching it. And now, in the modern age, it's a lot easier to watch what you want to watch for if you use different methods, let's just say that and not explain it any more than that. But anyway, HBO's Rome details like they had kind of a much more ambitious idea, which was to track the life in Rome from the the rise and fall of Julius Caesar until about 40 years after the death of Jesus. But they weren't able to do that because of budgetary constraints. So there are two seasons. The first season describes the rise and fall of Caesar, fall being that he was assassinated. Spoiler alert, I guess, for something that happened 2,000 years ago. And the other one deals with the kind of fallout from what happened after Caesar died, which is basically he named Augustus his heir, and then there was a civil war. And the consequences of that civil war were that Augustus, named Octavian, he got the name Augustus later. It just means like enlightened one, great one kind of thing. So Octavian Caesar becomes the first emperor, but at that time, emperors like it was imperator, so basically like leader, dictator kind of thing. Emperor didn't really in Latin mean what it did until much later. So he was the first emperor, but all of the trappings of the republic were there. So the show is lauded, I think, rightly for its devotion to historical accuracy. And I'm going to talk about things that I like about the show, but maybe one more thing before I do that. The show kind of shows you all of these characters from the Civil War, like we meet Cleopatra. And that's kind of weird, like thinking about Julius Caesar. At least in my mind, Julius Caesar has no connection to Cleopatra, but actually they had a son, and that's why Cleopatra is famous. But anyway, it shows the this whole process through the eyes of two common soldiers, Lucius Verenius and Titus Pulo. So Verenius is the more kind of like strict by the book one, more a little bit more intelligent, and Pulo is the one that like leads by his heart or whatever. So what I liked about it, yes, there is a lot of historical accuracy, and the introduction, the credit scenes, it has this it's quite long by modern standards, and it shows basically Roman graffiti coming to life. But that kind of describes why the show is so great. It is trying to show us the Roman pagan worldview, because even though European civilization is kind of based on Roman civilization, it's based on Roman Christian civilization. It's not based on this pagan stuff that existed before the empire converted. And that kind of continues into the mindset of people. You have people arguing about if the gods are real or if they have any effect. You have people who curse people and then feel really bad about it and feel guilty about that. So that's really good. But I have two, and so honestly, this is another series that I didn't finish watching, even though it's only 20 episodes long. I didn't finish the second series for the second reason that I'm going to give you. But I think the first one is the more serious one. So in the show, there's a character named Atia Julia. So Atia Julia in real life was the niece of Julius Caesar and the mother of Octavian Caesar. So Caesar was not like a last name that they had. They had the Julian name. So Julius Caesar, that's actually like a family name. Julius Gaius Caesar. So anyway, so he adopts Octavian and then he uses the word Caesar, and then Caesar becomes a synonym for emperor in different languages. But anyway, so she is the mother of Octavian. So in real life, she was kind of made into this sort of propaganda icon. Like, she was the best mother. She was so chaste and womanly and all of that. But the show kind of depicts her as this conniving woman who's a bit stupid and she just cares about the desires of the flesh and all of that. And I think that they do a real big disservice to real history. Because, on the one hand, I understand the argument that you can't be historically 100% accurate with shows like this because it wouldn't be interesting. But there's the other thing, which is there's a lot of stuff that they can't show you in shows like this because audiences wouldn't believe it, right? I think that's called the Becky problem. I forgot what name it is, but there's some name which is common nowadays, which is a really old name, but people think it's modern. So if you use it in fiction, people are like, "What? That's not a old-timey name." So I think that shows there are limits to how accurate you can be, but if someone's only interest in Roman history is this show, I think that you have done them a big disservice to show these things that probably didn't happen, and you're not even showing how people would have viewed Octavian's mother at the time, right? Or at least the way that, like, even if they had made it like, yeah, she wasn't a saint, but she was like a normal person, and Octavian was trying to like whitewash her a little bit, like, oh yes, she's my mother, she's saintly, I'm awesome, she's awesome. Like, that would kind of make more sense than what they actually do in this show, which is just to make her some kind of like weird sex craved villain. And speaking about sex craved, there's another thing where and it's kind of weird, the rumors that they want to focus on, because at the time there was this rumor that Julius Caesar had an affair with the leader of Parthia or something, and that they were having like sex, and that he was the passive one in that relationship. And so basically Romans didn't have any problem. Like, Roman sexuality is all another complicated topic, but apparently they didn't have any problem with homosexual sex in men, but they did have a problem if you weren't the active person, right? So anyway, there was a rumor that Julius Caesar was a passive in this relationship with this king of Parthia or someone, and that's not mentioned in the series. But there was also this kind of like wild thing that's never been proven, just kind of like used by Octavian's enemies to try and discredit him, that he had been sleeping with his sister, and they show that as fact in this series. So I think when you're making an historical show, you need to make it like as accurate as you can and as entertaining as you can. And just using the salacious things gives people the wrong impression. It's kind of like The Favorite. I think The Favorite is a great movie, but there's this suggestion that Queen Charlotte had an affair with this woman, because those were the rumors, but historians say it's probably not true. So I think that they need to present what we know now, like the most accurate version that we know right now. And maybe they'll find some documents later that say that Octavian did have sex with his sister, and then you can make a movie about that, you know. But I think it just makes it like really kind of feel sleazy. And then it kind of becomes torture porn later, connected to the characters of Pulo and what was the other guy's name? Verenius or Varenus. So back to my other criticism of them. So Pulo and Varenus are these soldiers, and they show, and this is also, I know that they couldn't do this, but they have one battle scene in the first season, and it's just to show that Pulo is a hothead and he doesn't understand Roman discipline, right? But they don't show any battles between Caesar and his enemies. They just show like the before and the after. So Caesar apparently is one of the greatest generals of all time, and you don't show any of his strategy. I mean, they do mention with Pompey how Pompey does this thing where he's talking about his strategy, but you don't see any of the battles. You just see this one battle. So that's not my main criticism. My main criticism is Pulo and Varenus were real people. They were mentioned in Caesar's writing, but kind of as like, Pulo and Varenus did this, basically, like one sentence about the both of them. And that's how they're remembered to history, because they weren't major characters. They're just mentioned by Caesar. So I get the point of having them as characters, but it kind of feels like they are the Forrest Gump of ancient Rome, that they are there where when anything is happening. So basically, Caesar in this gets assassinated because Varenus, who had been acting as a sort of bodyguard, is having like his own private issues. So basically, Varenus loses his family and Caesar because he got a little bit jealous. Kind of crazy. And that's a little bit of a plot hole as well, because he mentioned, so basically they've been at war for a long time. They come back. Varenus is married. He has this confrontation with his wife because he sees her with a baby. So he gets really mad, and then they have a really tense relationship for a while. And then he understands it doesn't matter what she was doing before if she's here now, and she wants to make this work with me. So they end up having like this great relationship. And he says, it doesn't matter what happened in the past. I forgive you. I don't even think he says I forgive you. He just says, I understand, and then let's move on. So I felt like he knew that the baby might not have been, like, that she might be lying about who the father of the baby was. She was the father of the baby. So later, it turns out that he actually discovers that she was the mother of the baby, and he goes to confront her, and they have a confrontation where she commits suicide because he's just playing with a knife, and she has said that he'll kill her if he finds out. So kind of a big plot hole there. But anyway, yeah, and the thing about the assassination of Caesar is not just that like they're actually in Egypt when Caesar meets Cleopatra. So they are present at all of these key moments, which kind of deflates and defeats the purpose of them serving as an audience surrogate or a way into understanding what daily life in Rome was like for them. And like eventually Varenus becomes a senator, and then that is just kind of forgotten in the second season. Like he goes back to his like old life, but he was a senator, right? So they have meetings in the Senate still. It doesn't make any sense. So I think on the whole, it's a frustrating failure of a series because it doesn't, so it makes odd decisions which would give people a weird understanding of Roman history, and it also focuses it focuses too much on a Forrest Gump like story element, which is that these characters are at these historical big events just randomly by happen chance. And there's no way that those two common Roman soldiers would be at each of these historic events. They might be at one or two, but all of them stretches the limits of one's imagination. And I think that it's a shame because, as I said, it does put you in the mind of ancient Romans in a way that no other media does. So it's frustrating because it is some of the best media about Rome we have, but it's deeply, deeply flawed. So maybe somebody can come back to the topic one day and create something because, I'm really curious, like what ancient Romans thought during that time. Did they think Caesar was a good guy? Did they welcome Octavian? I mean, they had a civil war about it, so obviously they weren't all of one voice. One other moment that I like is that they have, and it's kind of an odd way to give exposition, but I think it really works in this series. They have like a newsreader because they don't have any newspapers, right? So they have a guy who stands on the corner and yells to the passerbys what's going on, like, yes, Caesar has returned, or the, and then there's always like a little bit of political messaging in the information, like, in the beginning, Caesar is this rebel, and at the end, he's somebody who, the glorious Caesar, our father Caesar, so the propaganda becomes really, really big. And he's this large, heavy set guy, and he does all of these like movements. So you can kind of think that that would be a job that somebody would have because you would need to be entertaining in that situation, telling people, because you need to get their attention, right? Because some of the information that he says is quite important, like, don't go after 10, and, there's this big feast, but if you're a prostitute, you're not invited, and, imagine being a prostitute and going to that big feast and not being invited. Social death, that would be. All right, so I have mixed feelings about this one. What do you think? Put your thoughts in the comment section. If you like what I do, please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to 900 subscribers by the end of April. We're at 855, so I think that is doable. And yeah, take care and have a nice Easter. Thank you. Bye-bye.